Hello, this is MJR RPG. I've been away for a good while, but now I'm back at my computer, so let's get right into it. Following is a review of the Japanese Call of Cthulhu scenario 3 Requests by Uchiyama Yasujirou for the scenario collection Bibliothek 13. As always, the first bit of this scenario is largely spoiler light, so players can listen in, while the second half is completely full of spoilers, so I will warn off any players before I begin that. In short, 3 Requests is a small-scale freeform investigation that binds its puzzle and mystery to an easily adjustable rising tension that makes it a great, and one of my new favorites, one-shot intermediate scenarios. 3 Requests is the last of Uchiyama's 4 scenarios in the Bibliothek 13 collection and the 11th overall. Like his first entry in the collection, A Cup of Horror, 3 Requests largely takes place inside a single building, though investigators are free to leave if they really feel like it. The building is much larger this time, encompassing a large mansion and its surrounding grounds. Instead of being a closed scenario with the investigators locked inside something and looking for a way out, or a classic Call of Cthulhu dungeon crawl-esque spooky house scenario like The Haunting or The Cracked and Crooked Manse, where the investigators delve into a building to find and root out the spookiness, 3 Requests is a ticking clock freeform puzzle investigation. While ostensibly set in modern-day Japan, it could very easily be adapted to other times and settings, and indeed would fit very snugly in a classic 1920s Lovecraft country. It is very firmly a problem-solving scenario before anything else. The investigators are given a mysterious problem, well, 3, as the title implies, that they need to figure out and deal with, and in the process reveal weirder and more dangerous problems that must be solved. The scenario gets straight to the chase, giving players immediate objectives, a full lay of the land, and an obvious time limit. Then they are set completely free. The tight location and time limit make it easy for the keeper to manage the real-time length of the scenario, helping it fit into a one-shot session as short or as long as necessary, though I'd suggest between 3 to 4 hours for most groups. While the scenario is very player-focused, giving them freedom in how to explore the mansion, pursue their objectives, and come up with their own solutions, the keeper does have plenty of tools to focus the action or speed the players along. The keeper's main job, and the main difficulty in running the scenario, is that pacing. It shouldn't be too much of a hassle, but if there is a tight time limit, keepers should plan out the beats ahead of time so they can shepherd players forward with regular time skips. Physically, the scenario covers 15 tightly packed pages. There are some small handouts and a few black and white illustrations, a full-page map, and some keeper aids like a flowchart and a timetable. The text is mostly split between events and the layout of the house, with most of the rooms inside the most important being given just a threadbare description. Lists and boxes break up the formatting, and while the scenario is leaning towards a more intermediate difficulty level, there is still plenty of keeper direction and guidance. As with most scenarios in Bibliothek 13, the hook is written so it can accommodate most any investigators, including ones in an ongoing campaign, and no pre-gens are provided. Keepers can help players invest their characters into the scenario more by tying their characters to the central NPC. Otherwise, the players will need to come up with their own good reason for their investigators to care about the situation, or just go along for the ride, rather than peace out when things get spooky. Not a unique issue by any means, every scenario has that issue at some point, but it's one a keeper could always keep in mind. It's difficult to go into the best parts of the scenario without spoilers, but I will say it launched itself up into the ranks of my favorite one-shots. I really enjoyed time pressure and small location scenarios, and this combines those with a compelling mystery, a sense of impending doom, and a fun moral dilemma. In the end, it does the thing that I always want most out of Call of Cthulhu scenario. Something that stresses players while keeping them engaged and guessing, up until you see the light bulb flash in their eyes and they figure out what to do at the same time the pressure reaches a boiling point. It might not have as much juicy, in-depth character role-playing, or a boundary-pushing story, or complex combat and mechanical shenanigans as some other top-class Call of Cthulhu scenarios, but 3 Requests just does a damn fine job at being an investigation. Highly recommended. The following section is packed full of spoilers, so if you're a player or just don't want to know what's going on, I would suggest stopping here. The eponymous 3 requests are 1. Catch the dog in the bamboo grove. 2. Block the cellar door. And 3. Lock me in my room at night and let me out in the morning. The investigators are given these requests by an old dilettante, Mitake Bunji. For material gain, or more personal reasons if the players and keepers modify the background, the investigators go to Bunji's mansion for a 3-day job, where they find the request stuck to the door and Bunji himself inside, tied up and catatonic. The players are then left to their own devices. The scenario structure is largely determined by the players, as they can pursue leads as they see fit, but by the end of 3 days, events will come to a head whether the players are ready or not. These events come in the form of the undead spilling out of their graves and ghouls swarming the nearby town. Investigators can piece together the backstory by exploring the mansion and eventually talking to Bunji himself when he comes around for a short period at dusk each day. Bunji was studying a ritual to prolong his life so he could live longer with his young wife. Unfortunately, the wife didn't care for Bunji that much, only his wealth. And as the old dilettante spent more of that wealth researching magic, she grew frustrated and ended up poisoning Bunji to death. Unfortunately for her, that triggered the ritual Bunji had been attempting, bringing him back from death, but as a mindless zombie at first. He killed and ate part of his wife, and her dog, before regaining his senses at dawn. He then wrote to the investigators for help and set about trying to find a way to reverse the ritual, saving him and his wife. Unknown to him, the ritual is growing and will start reviving corpses in a wider perimeter around his mansion. As the investigators explore, they can come across the also undead but mangled wife, a zombie dog in the bamboo grove, undead bits of chicken in a fridge, a zombified pet goldfish, and potential run-ins with ghouls preparing to break out of their tunnels. With only 2 full days before the ritual grows out of hand, the investigators need to deal with Bunji's requests and the growing weirdness around the mansion, while figuring out how the ritual works and how to reverse it. The final solution ends up requiring the final, real and forever, death of Bunji. He loses his nerve at the last minute, either requiring the investigators to convince him reversing the ritual must be done, or fighting him off to complete it themselves. And if the ritual is reversed, whether Bunji agreed or not, the investigators are treated to a horrific end to the dilettante, as the god of ghouls, Mordigian, comes for Bunji. If the investigators had any connection to Bunji, it's a rough ending. Even if they know it's for the best, they still have to watch as he's dragged into wherever a mythos deity resides. No heartful goodbyes, just screams for help. The main difficulty with running the scenario is keeping the pacing moving at a good clip to meet whatever time limit you have, which probably should be a single session, if possible. Players could split up and try doing everything at once, and keepers should be ready to jump around and skip time as needed to press onwards. Keepers will likely need to tell players that certain actions will take more time than others, as well as impose penalties on investigators that stay up overnight. The scenario comes with a handy timetable to help structure the 3 days. In my run, it took us a little over 3 hours, with a good bit of me pushing and time skipping, especially near the end. If I had more time, I think 4 hours would be a more comfortable session, though it could easily end up much earlier if the players are focused, or just very lucky. Again, 3 requests is now one of my favorite intermediate type of scenarios. It's beefy while still fitting into a single session, and is limited enough to keep things easy to manage, while also throwing players in at the deep end with near total freedom in their walled-off little space. There are more ambitious scenarios out there, but 3 requests is very successful at what it sets out to do. 3 requests can be found in Bibliothek 13, currently only in Japanese, available on Amazon, Kadokawa's store, or any Japanese bookstore that is cool enough to stock Call of Cthulhu books. Thank you for listening. I've been gone for the last month, but I should be back to a regular schedule now. As always, credit to CryoChamber for use of their album Cthulhu. Until next time, have a good one.